Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are, whatever the case may be. I'd like to begin the show today with a quote. Quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And that's a quote by Jim Rohn. Emmanuel James Rohn was professionally known as Jim Rohn, and he was an American author, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker. So ask yourself this question. Who do you spend the most time with? Well, for me, historically, I've spent the most time with the people that I've worked with and the people that I've lived with. But unfortunately, I gotta say, most of the time was spent consistently at work, and because my off time was spent either with family, friends, or by myself doing something somewhere. But either way, we're going to talk about my work history, my career history, and my background in this 97th episode of the All Around Growth podcast. For those of you who are new to the show, this is a show focused on building the lives of our dreams. My name is Rob Kaiser, and I am your host. Today is Friday, February 12th, 2021. It is a chilly morning. Exactly how chilly, I do not know. I suspect it has been like the remainder or the earlier part of the week, and it's either single digits or in the low teens. So why are we talking about my career history today? Well, that's an interesting topic, I guess. As I've said repeatedly this week, I am actively building the life of my dreams through consistent goal setting, utilizing the 7 following categories: financial, physical, personal development, family, spiritual, social, and career. Last week we covered financial and physical. Monday we talked personal development with an episode titled Finding Your Rudder. Tuesday we talked family with an episode on multi-generational families. Wednesday, we talked spirituality. Thursday, we talked about social issues or topics with a show called The Human Social Creature. And today, we are closing it out with an episode on career and work. And we'll get back to this on Monday with another episode on finance. But the quote of the day, again, is, "You are an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And again, that's a quote by Jim Rohn. And that quote was actually seen in the Best Self Journal today on page 141 of the Best Self Journal. And you can find a link to the Best Self Journal in the show notes. And if you feel so inclined to order one after hearing me talk about it all this time, you can use the promo code YMF. That's Yankee Mike Foxtrot, or also an acronym for York Meadow Farm. You can get 15% off your first order. So check it out. It's a great journal. They have other great products there too. I own many of them, but more on that later. So that quote today got me thinking about who I spend my time with, and it got me thinking about the day job. And the reality is the day job has just been a part of my life for most of my life. And I've done some little side hustle things here and there, but I would would certainly not consider myself an entrepreneur at this point in my life. And as I think about this, and as I assembled the show notes about this topic, I realized that I have been with the day job now for 7 years. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I'm glad I spend most of my time working by myself. At any rate, career history. Now, to do this, the easiest thing that I could do was reference my LinkedIn profile. And I'm going to take us all the way back to 1997. And that was the first year I began working at Cahoon Nursery. That was the year after I graduated high school. And maybe I started in 98, I don't know. But it was the late 90s. And ultimately, I ended up going to the Ohio State University Agricultural Technical Institute, ATI, in the town of Worcester, Ohio. Not main campus that everybody knows and loves, but it was a little farm school, and I learned quite a bit about horticulture and built my foundation in the industry there. And I went back and continued working at Cahoon Nursery full-time, doing retail sales and landscape design for about 7 years. And I did that until about 2004. During that time, I spent a few years in Colorado, but I ended up coming back working in the nursery, and then I moved down to North Carolina and spent about 2.5 years working at a place called Appalachian Creek Nursery and Landscape, and I was primarily a crew supervisor there, but I lived in the old farmhouse on site and sort of began toying with the idea of homesteading and things like that. After I left there, I started working at the Arboretum, but I was also working part-time as an apprentice at an organic farm called Thatchmore Farm. And I did that for a season. And again, I was working at the North Carolina Arboretum. I did that for about 1.5 years before moving back to Ohio when my parents bought this property in late 2007, early 2008. I was kind of ready for a change anyways from the old home state, and was ready to give this homesteading idea a shot, especially now that Mom and Dad had some land and we were all getting older. Now, keep in mind, this was almost 15 years ago. And things just didn't work out. Housing bubble crashed and parents couldn't get financing on the land and such. So I decided to take a job, and not do the gig at the nursery, expand my horizons. And I decided to chase a career in the corporate world. And I did that through forestry. Forestry at that time was a booming industry when a lot of economic hardship was occurring, and utility forestry was where it was at for me because I could get paid to hike outdoors and look at trees, and I learned a lot about the utility infrastructure of the nation and the grid, because the reason why we were so active at that time in the utility forestry business was because there was a huge outage 4 years prior in 2004 that basically had the entire northeast United States blacked out for a few days, and all of it, the root cause of it, was a 4-inch maple, 4-inch in diameter maple tree that grew into the line, and the line sagged into it and grounded it and circuits had to be carried by other circuits, and they were overloaded, and everything cascaded and crashed. So, April 2008, I started working as a contract utility forester, doing projects all throughout the eastern United States. And by mid-2009, I had moved up to the senior utility forester, kind of running projects in the field. And by early 2010, I was managing projects and traveling a lot on the road and managing the guys in the field. And I had quite a crew underneath me, maybe about 40, 50 employees and multiple contracts. Did that for about a year and a half, and that's when I burned out. Burnout 1.0. Good times. So because I worked for a big corporation, the Davey Tree Expert Company, I was able to make a lateral move, and life was interesting at that time. I crossed paths with an old friend at a wedding, and we hit it off, and I ended up moving to California, chasing love, chasing dreams, and it was awesome. And I did that for a couple of years, and while I was out there, I was a field supervisor again, doing urban forestry this time, and then went back to utility forestry, working with utilities in Southern California. And also at that time, my parents were making progress on the land. I had become hip to some ideas of permaculture and homesteading, stumbled across the Survival podcast at that time and was listening to a lot of that and really getting the gears grinding on, the potential and the possibility to be a self-sufficient homesteader at some point in the future, or, and help my parents do the same. So I managed to take one final project in Texas. It's serving as the interim project coordinator, where I was going to find, hire, and train the replacement to take that position, because I was trying to work my way home, but they wanted me to take that position. So an even negotiation was me taking that on for a year with some negotiated pay rates and such, and that allowed me to get out of debt at that time, and to kind of celebrate me getting out of debt and having one last hurrah before moving back to Ohio. I went to Denver with my friend Rick, and we took a trip out into the Utah backcountry for a few days. And on the last leg home, actually on the drive home of that trip, I fell into a series of extended seizures. It appeared as though I was sleeping. And when we got home, Rick realized that I wasn't sleeping, and ambulance was called, and I was given a healthy dose of propofol and put into a medically induced coma to basically reboot my brain. And that accelerated my trip home to Ohio, and the medical expenses incurred after that really got me back to the feeling of debt and thinking that I could never escape it. And then I began working here at Davis Tree Farm, and I'm on my last leg of the commute here now. And I started off as a sales rep there in January 2014, and I basically did sales in some way, shape, or form for 6 years, up until last year when I said no more, because my priorities had shifted and they wanted me to move into inventory after basically I sucked. All right, like 2 years of sales in the front office, and then at the same time chasing other people's dreams, going deep into debt doing so. I experienced burnout 2.0, and I really should have been fired from the job, but I work for nice people, so they shifted gears and recognized that I could probably fill the need for inventory management and inventory control. And I had since been working in inventory for the past 5 years, and I still do. That's the bulk of what I do now, even though I do some digital content creation online. So that pretty much brings us up to the current day. And there's one thing in the show notes that isn't listed. And, this and links to all of the other things that I've talked about are in the show notes, so check those out. I did not, however, list my own business, Deliberate Living Systems, which was founded in 2014 in the process of chasing all these other people's dreams. Now, towards the end of my front office sales career, when I went through Burnout 2.0 and I let the business go defunct basically in late 2016, early 2017. But I decided that I am in a position now to recover the business and start moving forward and integrating it more wholly into my life. So I recovered the website as of last month and am making a slow recovery into learning how to function as a business and ultimately make money sometime. So there's my career history, dating all the way back to 1997 when I first began working at the nursery after high school. And here we are, Friday, February 12th, 2021, closing out episode 97 of the All Around Growth podcast. So just about after 24 years or so of working in the green industry and realizing that's all I've really ever done is work in different facets of the green industry, here I am, obsessing about who I am and where I'm going. But it's not been an easy journey, all right, but it's become much, much easier. And I've gained a lot more clarity on all of this since becoming debt-free. So for me, that was the starting point of it all. And I've finally reached a conclusion that all I need to do is follow the baby steps and the rest will figure itself out. So hopefully this show was of value to you. And if it was, and you'd like to give it a thumbs up or support it in some way, shape, or form, again, go to the show notes and you can go all the way to the bottom and you'll see a link in all capital letters that says click here to rate and review the podcast. And that will take you to iTunes online where you can leave a 5-star review, Apple Podcasts rather, and if you feel so inclined, leave a written review. It's a 5-star rating rather. So, if you have any questions or feedback for me, I would encourage you to join the Telegram group at t.me/allaroundgrowth on your internet browser. Or if you've got the Telegram Messenger app on your phone, you can find us by searching for All Around Growth there also. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you